Have you ever wondered how a tiny, almost invisible system error gets spotted and squashed before it can cause a huge problem? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly how it's done. We're going on a data journey, watching how a chaotic flood of raw errors gets transformed into a clean, powerful dashboard that makes problems literally impossible to miss.
Our journey has 5 main stops. First, we'll talk about the real problem we're trying to solve here, finding a needle in a digital haystack. Then, we'll jump into our first tool, Apache NiFi, where we grab all that raw data. After that, we'll see how Elasticsearch acts like a super smart library for all this information. And then, the payoff, visualizing everything in Kibana, before we wrap up by putting all the pieces together.
So, let's set the stage. Any complex system you can think of is just constantly generating a tidal wave of data. We're talking logs, warnings, error messages, you name it. The real challenge isn't that you don't have enough data, it's about trying to find the truly meaningful signals in all of that noise.
And that really is the fundamental question, isn't it? When something breaks, how do you find the what, the where, and the when without having to manually sift through a mountain of text files? Answering that question is the whole reason this architecture we're about to walk through even exists.
Okay, so our journey starts with a tool called Apache NiFi. This is where we get our hands dirty with the raw error data and start molding it into something that's actually useful. Think of it as the very first stop on our data's assembly line.
And here it is. This is our assembly line in action. What you're looking at is a NiFi data flow. Don't worry too much about the details in each box for now. The key thing to see is that it's a clear visual map that shows exactly how our messy data gets cleaned up and refined, step by step.
So, what exactly is NiFi? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a digital plumber for data. It lets you build these pipelines that automatically pick up data from one place, change it around while it's in transit, and then drop it off somewhere else. And the best part? You build these incredibly complex flows not with code, but with a simple drag-and-drop canvas.
So let's break down what's really happening inside this NiFi flow. A raw error data goes through 4 really important steps. First, it's captured, then it's split up into manageable pieces, then it gets enriched with some vital context, and finally, it's filtered so we're only looking at the really critical stuff.
It all kicks off when a big bundle of errors arrives, kind of like a stack of mail held together with a rubber band. The split JSON processor is the tool that just snips that band. It takes that whole batch and breaks it down into individual letters, or in our case, individual error messages, so we can look at each one by one.
Next up, we add some much-needed context. A raw error message on its own often doesn't tell you where it came from. The update record processor fixes that. It's like a little stamping machine that adds new, useful information to each error record. In this case, we're tagging it as coming from the dev environment and adding the specific NiFi address. This makes the data so much more powerful later on.
Okay, now it's time to separate the signal from the noise. This processor, route on attribute, acts like a bouncer at a club. It checks every single record, and based on the rule we gave it, it only lets records through where the bulletin level is error. All the other stuff, like warnings or info messages, gets sent down a different path. This keeps our pipeline laser-focused on the real problems. So, we've captured our data, we've cleaned it up, we've filtered it, it's now prepped and ready for the next stage of its journey. It's time to hand it off to a system that's built from the ground up to store, search, and analyze data at incredible speeds. And this is that handoff. The put Elasticsearch record processor is basically the exit door for our NiFi flow. Its one and only job is to take our perfectly prepared error records and ship them off to their new home, Elasticsearch.
You can think of Elasticsearch as a highly specialized digital library. It doesn't just store data, it indexes every piece of it in a really clever way. That's what makes it unbelievably fast to search and pull information, even when you're dealing with millions and millions of records. This is where all our important errors are going to live. Now, this little snippet of code is actually pretty genius. It acts like a digital librarian for Elasticsearch. See, instead of just dumping all of our errors into one giant messy box, it automatically creates a new, neatly labeled shelf, or index, for every single day. This simple trick is what keeps our searches lightning fast and makes managing all this data so much easier.
All right, so our data's been processed by NiFi and it's all neatly stored in Elasticsearch. But, data sitting in a database isn't very useful by itself. We need to actually see it. And that's where the final piece of our puzzle, Kibana, comes into play.
And here it is. This is the payoff for all of that work. This is our Kibana dashboard. We have literally transformed a chaotic, invisible stream of text files into this, a clear, interactive mission control for our system's health.
And this isn't some old report. This is a live view. At the very moment this was screen grabbed, our system was juggling almost 5,000 distinct error events. Before, that was just noise buried in logs. Now, it's a single, manageable number you can actually look at.
And this is where it gets really powerful. Instead of guessing what might be going wrong, we can just see it. This chart tells us instantly which specific parts of our system are generating the most errors. Right away, we know that log message and insert transaction TL are our biggest troublemakers, and that's exactly where we should focus our attention.
But the dashboard isn't just for a high-level overview. We can drill right down into the nitty-gritty details. Here are the individual error logs showing the exact time, the processor that failed, and the specific error message. And hey, see that dev environment tag we added way back in NiFi? There it is, providing that crucial context right where we need it.
Okay, so let's just take a quick step back and look at the entire journey one more time. We started with this raw stream of system messages and ended up with a fully interactive visual dashboard.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's all about how these three tools work together to create something really powerful. NiFi is the tireless data collector, doing all the grunt work. Elasticsearch is the lightning-fast librarian, keeping everything organized, and Kibana is the storyteller, turning all that raw data into visual insights we can act on immediately. Together, they give us a complete, real-time view of our system's health.
And that kind of brings us to a final thought. This whole setup isn't just for errors, right? You could use this exact same architecture to monitor performance, user activity, pretty much any data stream you can imagine. So the real question to think about is, once you have this kind of visibility into your systems, what other hidden problems or insights are just waiting to be discovered?